All right, we are now recording. Good. I almost forgot to hit that. Yikes. Did that once last year, and I had to record the whole session over again myself. The sessions are absolutely useless if not recorded. So I will repeat a little bit of what I said just before I click that good old record button. I was saying this is Unit 3, complex sound. Unit 1, we covered frequency, wavelength, speed of sound. Unit 2, we covered the decibel, and I say from hell, and we spent 2 weeks on that. This time we'll spend 2 weeks on Unit 3, complex sound. And the most common complex sound of interest to us is speech. That's what people with hearing aids want to hear. Another complex sound is noise. And noise is always the competitor to speech. In fact, what you're going to learn about more later on is something called signal to noise ratio. Signal being speech, noise being what you don't want to hear. The biggest complaint hearing aid wearers have is background noise. That's numero uno. That's the first thing they complain about. I can hear with the hearing aids, but they pick up the background noise all the time. Well, people with hearing loss have more difficulty in background noise than people do with normal hearing. If we walk in a noisy place, yep, it's harder for us to hear. So we have to really concentrate. But for someone with hearing loss, it's even more difficult, even when they're aided. And that has a lot to do with the loss of hair cells in their inner ear. And when you've got sensory neural hearing loss due to damage of the inner ear, it's harder to separate speech, the signal, from noise. And that's why hearing aids today have directional microphones to pick up sounds in the direction you're facing, and they also use digital noise reduction. And they use both of those two twin tricks. And the reason why? To increase the signal to noise ratio. Always remember, hearing aids have to do two things. First of all, they've got to give gain amplification, which is like duh, obviously. And secondly, they have to increase the signal to noise ratio. Anyway, that's a topic more for mañana, later on. Right now, we got to concentrate on the complex noise, no? All right, I'll put on my glasses so I can see. Did I ever tell you where I got these stupid glasses from? I can't remember. I might be getting Alzheimer's, but you know where I got these from? An audiologist in Springfield, Missouri. Check it out. She gave them to me about 10 years ago. I still wear the dang things, and I never knew at that time I would ever be teaching at a college based in Springfield, Missouri. I had no idea. Gotta like the coincidence. All right, I'm going to share screen here. And we will take a look-see, and not at my Zoom Collaborate. Let's look at the PowerPoint we got here. So we are talking complex sounds, and you can see this PowerPoint slide here, and I'll read you, let's read together as well from our notes, okay? Complex sounds, almost all sounds we hear are complex. Now this is covered nicely in Lass and Woodford, pages 18 through 36 as well. Anyway, complex sounds are combinations of many different frequencies. You can see it there. Each frequency may have different amplitudes and phases. I'll show you a picture. Complex sounds can also be periodic or non-periodic. Now, that's a distinction. That's a fork in the path. Periodic means the sound wave repeats over time. Nicely, has a nice do-do-do-do-do. Any sound that's periodic, you can look at the sound wave and you'll see a pattern or a rhythm in it. And when a sound is periodic, it's tonal. It's like music, it's tonal. If it's non-periodic, if you looked at the sound wave of a non-periodic tone sound, you would see no rhythm or pattern in it at all. It would look like a jagged set of lines. And guess what? That's noise. Noise is non-periodic. You know, just and some sounds are a mixture of both. I'll give you an example. Think of speech. Think of vowels of speech. A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. A, O, U, E. Okay, those are all tonal. They're all using my voice. What sounds of speech are noise? The letter S, S. The letter T, T. The letter K, K. Those are noise. So speech is a complex combination of periodic, tonal, and non-periodic noise sounds. So when you think about speech, it's a really good idea to divorce yourself from the meaning of speech. Who cares? Sit on a train and listen to people who from another country and whose language you do not understand. Then you can appreciate just the speech acoustics. Not the meaning, just the acoustics of the sound. What do you call? Nihongo de hanashimasu ka? Do you understand Japanese? Doi itashimashite. Excuse me, or thank you very much. You know, there's a yakety yakety yak. My father can beat your father at checkers. Okay, just speech has all different pops and fizzes. The acoustics of speech are complex, periodic and non-periodic. So periodic sound waves, we read here, any sound that repeats over time. Any sound that repeats over time is tonal. Until now, we've discussed pure tones. Pure tones hardly exist in nature. They're only produced in hearing tests. That's the only time you're listening to pure tones. Audiometers make pure tones. All pure tones are called simple sounds because they have one frequency. But 99.999% of sounds have more than one frequency. And so now we're going to talk about how we represent complex sounds. Complex sounds are best seen, and you'll see here on this PowerPoint slide, as a spectrum. Now read this, it's right out of your text. You've got all these different frequencies. This is just an example. You'll see 100 hertz, 200 hertz, and so on. And the lowest one is called the fundamental frequency. That's the lowest frequency in a complex sound. In this particular example, you've got like 10 different tones. And in this particular example, the intensity of the tones gets less as the frequency goes higher. It doesn't have to be. It's just this particular example. So you'll see on a spectrum, the horizontal is frequency, the vertical is amplitude. This is a spectrum showing a fundamental frequency and its harmonics. So now let's define harmonics. Harmonics are equal multiples of the fundamental frequency. In this case, the fundamental frequency is 100 hertz. So any harmonics are going to be equal multiples of 100 hertz. Okay? Remember, harmonics are not like octaves. Look at this one, 200. That's one octave higher than the fundamental because it's double the frequency. Remember, when you double the frequency, you go up one octave. So if 100 hertz, one octave higher is 200 hertz, what's the next octave? 400 hertz. What would be the next octave? Double it, 800 hertz. Okay, so always make a distinction between octaves and harmonics. They're just slightly different definitions. In a complex sound, harmonics are equal multiples of the fundamental frequency. Octaves are a doubling of the frequency, going higher and higher. And when you think of a human hearing test on the audiogram, okay, the audiogram, the lowest frequency, 125 hertz. The next frequency, 250 hertz. The next one, 500 hertz. We're going up in octaves. The next one, 1,000 hertz. The next one, 2. The next one, 4. And the last one, 8,000 hertz. All right. Just important to make sure we've got our little distinctions here. I will now we'll read as we move on down the page. Each a spectrum versus a wavelength, or I should say a waveform. We've described waveforms, and we did that in Unit 1. Wavelengths, that's the sound wave going over time, and you've all seen that, okay? That's time on the horizontal, amplitude on the vertical, and you're looking at the sound waves. And we covered that in Unit 1. Spectrum is another way of representing sound. Let me give you an analogy of a spectrum versus a waveform. We'll just talk turkey here, okay? Think of the waveform as a loaf of bread, okay? Starting at one end, ending at the other end, okay? It's long, and it's got amplitude. Time is the horizontal, amplitude is how thick the bread is. A spectrum is like taking a slice of bread. You're taking one slice of the bread and you're turning it this way so you can see the raisins inside. Think of it like that. A spectrum is a slice of sound. Okay? And when you take a slice of the sound, you can see all the different frequencies inside. A waveform shows you what's going on in the sound over time, but it's hard to calculate the frequency. Remember, period is 1 over the frequency. Frequency is 1 over the period. So you have to look at the time it took to create one wavelength and divide, and then you'll end up with the frequency. Frequency is not self-evident in a waveform, but frequency is self-evident in a spectrum. It's like a slice. You're slicing it, turning it sideways. There's the frequency. All right. Share screen once again. My, we're having fun. Isn't this special? All right. Read with me right here. Spectrum versus waveform. Each has limitations. Okay? Because each one shows only 2 dimensions of sound. A piece of paper has 2 dimensions. I can draw it has length and width. Sound, remember, has 3 dimensions: frequency, intensity, and time. So I need 2 different pieces of paper to show you the 3 dimensions of sound. A waveform shows you time and amplitude, and a spectrum shows frequency and amplitude. Amplitude gets spoiled. It's on both of them. But at any rate, when you use a spectrum and a waveform together, those show all 3 dimensions of sound. So look what it says here. Sound takes place in frequency, intensity, and time. A waveform, the axes are time on the horizontal, amplitude on the vertical. Waveforms are great at showing tiny changes in sound over time, but it's difficult to pick out the specific frequencies. There it is. You'd think I wrote these notes. Many sounds are mixtures of both tonality and noise. For example, speech. Vowels and voiced consonants of speech are examples of tonal sounds that also have noise. Stop a second here, Ted. Let's stop sharing screen and look at each other again. All right. Speech. Vowels are tonal. A, E, I, O, U. Remember? I, E, I. Anything that uses the voice, tonal. Remember the high frequency consonants that don't use the voice. Hold your hand on your throat. Put your fingers to your throat and say ah, ah. You feel it vibrate? Now say o, o, oo, e. Now hold your fingers to your throat and say the letter S. S. Didn't vibrate, did it? Say the letter F. F. Didn't vibrate, did it? TH. CH. SH. Okay? Those are high-pitched, non-tonal. Those are noises. But guess what? Some sounds are a mixture of both. Say the letter S again, and now put a voice in it. Z. Guess what? You have a Z. A Z is a voiced F. Take F and put a V, put a voice in F. Now you have a V. A V is a voiced F. Take the letter P. Put a voice in it. B, b, b. Guess what? A B is a voiced P. Take the letter K. K, k, k. Put a voice in it. G, g, g. Hey, guess what? A G is a voiced K. So some consonants are voiced consonants. M, M, D, B, G, J. Okay, they're using the voice and the noise. Whereas some consonants are unvoiced. Now those are the ones that affect our clients, the ones we're going to deal with. Guess what? They have high-pitched hearing loss, and unvoiced consonants are high-pitched. Guess what? They've got presbycusis. Presbycusis, weird word. Hearing loss in the elderly. Sounds just like the word Presbyterian, doesn't it? Hey, I'm a preacher's kid. I'm allowed to say this. Presbyterian means Church of the Elders, as opposed to the deacons. Church of the Elders, Presbyterian. Presbycusis, hearing in the elders. Presbyopia, the reason why I wear these glasses from Missouri. I can't see stuff close up. When you hit 40, your arms aren't long enough to see the page. You got to hold the page for the presbyopia. Presby is the Greek word for elder. Presbyopia, vision loss in the elder. Presbycusis, hearing in the elders. Presbyterian, Church of the Elder. Presby. You know, just for fun, what's the Latin word for elder? Senex. Senator, elderly statesman. Senile. All of Senex is the Latin word for elder. Anyway, just has nothing to do with hearing, but just thought I'd throw that crap in there. Anyway, so there we go. So the hearing loss in presbycusis is an inability to hear the high-pitched consonants. And when someone can't hear the high-pitched consonants, they can hear, they just can't tell you what word was it. Okay, did they say hat, fat, cat, bat, mat? They all have but it's the that tells you everything. That tells you what the word is. And when you can't hear high pitches, you're going to say, kids mumble today. I can hear, I just can't tell what they say. Did they say dishes or fishes? Kittens or mittens? So they're always using their context to figure out what they must have said. And then they get tired and they get embarrassed because they're always trying to follow along. And then they go, you guys go on outside, have a good time. I'm going to stay back and read a book. That's the isolation caused by hearing loss. And only hearing impaired people really know what that is. I don't have hearing loss, but I can only imagine. Okay, you're going to be HISs, hearing instrument specialists, and we need to know how the acoustics of sound deals directly with the complaints of your clients. And that's why you have a course in acoustics, to learn what the Sam Hill sound is. What is the acoustics of speech? All right, back at it, Venema. Enough clowning around. We got work to do. How are you today? All right, so we'd be reading middle of our page, and we're at spectrum here. It's all good. So spectrum, if you look right where I'm got my little highlighter there, right there. Spectrum, the axes are frequency and amplitude. Okay, different from a waveform. Good for showing, yeah, look at this, specific. Good for showing specific, good one, Ted. Good for showing specific frequency components of complex sounds. But remember, in a spectrum, you can't see changes over time, because time is not involved in the spectrum. The horizontal is frequency, the vertical is amplitude. Where's time? Well, remember, a spectrum is a slice. Line versus continuous spectrum. Let's look at this puppy. Here's a line spectrum. Okay, it's got each particular frequency listed. But it doesn't have to be that way. Let's just look at it. Here's a picture out of your book. Here's a broad spectrum, a continuous spectrum. Look at this one here. It's got all frequencies where my cursor is here. Every frequency in there. Okay, that might be considered like white noise. The color white is all colors combined. You may remember from school drawing all different colors on a pie plate. And when you spin the pie plate, guess what? It looks white. White is the combination of all colors together. Okay? So white noise is when you have all the different frequencies at the same amplitude. Look at this. At the same amplitude. White noise. The bottom one here has a different shape, doesn't it? It's got lots of frequencies in it as well. But look at this, it's got more high frequency amplitude and less low frequency amplitude. So we would not call this white noise. Okay? I don't know what you'd call it, but it's not white noise. Now, if we look, I'm going to take you down to a different picture here, if I can show you here. Here, look at this guy. This is out of another textbook, and it's in your PowerPoints as well. White noise has all frequencies equal amplitude. Look at this one here, pink noise. Pink noise. Communist noise. No, I'm just teasing. More energy in the lows, less energy in the highs. See that? And they call it pink because it's, when you think of the light spectrum, think of the spectrum of light. Red is on the left. It's gone so far left, it's left America. Okay, red, and then you get yellow and green, and all of a sudden you get blue, and then you get violet, ultraviolet. Okay, and that's really high frequency light. So when light has low frequency in its waves, it's called red or pink. So when you make the frequency of light really high, you see blue or ultraviolet. So the same thing goes for sound. If the spectrum has lots of low frequency energy but less high frequency energy, we then call it pink noise. And that, BTW, by the way, is the spectrum of speech. So if you think of what would white noise sound like, it would sound like a radio between stations. What would pink noise sound like? Okay, not really tonal. You can hear a difference in pitch though, can't you? But it's not tonal. Okay, tonal is so white noise might be pink noise might be. So here, let's look at the spectrum of speech. Here's the spectrum of speech. Don't worry about the top and the bottom yet. Just look at the thick red line. See how the spectrum of speech has more energy in the low frequencies and less amplitude or energy in the high frequencies. And that's very true. The vowels of speech would be on the left. The voiced consonants like M, D, D, B, G, J, V, Z, they would be in the middle. And the high frequency unvoiced consonants would be sh, they would be here. And think of what's louder. When you say the name Paul, Paul, what's the loudest part of Paul? It's the ah. The isn't very loud. Think of the word speech or church, church, speech. The loudest part is the or the e. The ch is softer. And again, so think of the spectrum of speech. Vowels louder and lower and tonal. Mid-frequency consonants, voiced consonants, consonants that use your voice are in the middle, and high frequency sounds of speech are not only softer, but they're totally noise. They're untonal. They're non-periodic. And let's look at what we mean by non-periodic. Let's look at this a little closer. Here's a non-periodic waveform. Check this one out. Look on the left. That's noise. I don't see any rhythm or pattern in that complex waveform at all. It's just, and look at its amplitude. Look at its spectrum. White noise. Flat. It's got all frequencies underneath it around the same amplitude, white noise, and here would be its wavelength or its waveform. Okay, aperiodic. So just by looking at the waveform, you can say, yep, there's no tonality to that. That's noise. All right. Okay. Let's see what other lies I can tell you. All right. Read the middle of the page here. Oh, yes. Let's see. Oh yeah, line versus continuous spectrum. That was this stuff here. Line versus continuous. This is a continuous spectrum. Okay, continuous. It's got every frequency underneath. If I go home, go to the first slide. This is a line spectrum. Individual discrete frequencies are shown. Okay, that's a line spectrum. The other one is a continuous spectrum. And then the other one is something just below that. We see something called Fourier analysis. Fourier, Monsieur Fourier, was a Frenchman who first figured out that complex sounds are composed of many different frequencies. And how did he do this during the Napoleonic Wars in the 17th century? Okay, how did he do this? He would bang a gong, he would have a bell, boom, and he would have a bunch of tuning forks. Let me get these guys here, I'll be right back. All right. Gotta like this. Okay, here's a tuning fork. Here's another tuning fork. Okay, I'm showing you a whole bunch of different tuning forks. A bunch of these guys, okay? Show you all four of them here. Big events in the lives of little men. Here we go. Okay, and I'll just kind of stop sharing screen here so you can see it a bit better, but basically a whole bunch of tuning forks, all different sizes, okay? So what he would do is he would hang these tuning forks on a string. He would just hang them all on a string beside each other. And then he'd bang a gong, boom, and then he'd find out which tuning forks vibrated from that bell, which tuning forks resonated from that bell. And he would say, ah, that bell, it's got this tuning, it's got that sound in it. It doesn't have this one. It does have that one. It doesn't have that one. And that's how he found out that complex sounds are made of individual frequencies stuck together. So a Fourier analysis is a spectrum. It's basically, it's a spectrum. So share screen again. A Fourier analysis is a spectrum. There you go, there's a Fourier analysis. Just another word for it. All right, cool. Fundamental frequency, we said, is the lowest frequency in the complex sound. All right, cool, we went over that. And now let's go to the next slide here. Look at this one here. Here's a sound wave on the top. This is a sound wave or a waveform. The next one's showing you another wave or waveform, different frequency. Another one's, but they're the same intensity. Look at this. Same intensity, different frequencies. And the third one is showing you another sound, and it's different in frequency again, plus it's different in amplitude. Just giving you an example of combining tones together. So when you take A plus B plus C, stick them all together, you got D. Okay, there you go. Now, look at the bottom one here. Do you think is that noise or tonal? What do you think? And I hope you said tonal, because I can see a pattern to it. It's jagged, but there's still an overall pattern to it. So this one might sound kind of rough, but it's got all three. It's still periodic. It's tonal, because you can see a pattern in the overall waveform. All right, Here's another set. Here's our 3 spectra, 3 of them, A, B, and C. 3 different complex sounds are shown here. And each one has the same fundamental frequency. Look at that, 300 hertz. And they all have the same harmonics, don't they? Identical harmonics, 600, 900. Remember what harmonics are? Equal multiples of the fundamental frequency. 300 hertz, the next one 600, the next one 900, 1200, and so on. These are, I don't like the way they call it, histograms showing you this, whatever. Just call it the spectra of 3 different instruments. The fundamental frequency is the same in each one, but the amplitude of the harmonics is different. So these 3 instruments are gonna sound different. The harmonics have different amplitudes. And you can just draw a line kind of going brrrr. You can see this instrument here resonates at 900 hertz. It likes 900 hertz. Think of it like a wine glass at Christmas. Okay, take a different size wine glass and do the same thing. Take a different wine glass, do the same thing. Right? They're going to have different resonances. And that's why different instruments sound different. That's why a horn sounds different from a trumpet, from a clarinet, you know. Maybe the vibration of your lips in the end of the trumpet, you know, doing that, what they do when they're playing musical instruments, the vibration of your lips will be the same for each instrument, but because the shape of the horn is different, it's going to resonate at different frequencies. And that's what's going to give you your different sound quality. Okay, so read the bottom third of page 1 here, and we'll show it to you. It's got, I'll scroll it up here so you can see it mo better. All right, here you go. Spectrum of 3 complex sounds. And that's this picture I just showed you here. Okay, so we're looking just at that picture. So the bottom third of page 1 is talking about that picture. Note how they all have the same frequencies and the same fundamental frequency of 300 hertz. But the amplitude of each frequency is different. They each therefore have different resonances, which gives a different quality of sound. Back to Unit 1. Recall, resonance is the favorite vibrating frequency of an object. And resonance hinges on the object's mass and stiffness. It's all about mass and stiffness. Mass resonates with low frequencies. Stiffness resonates with high frequencies. All right? Mass and stiffness. Certain harmonics will therefore be emphasized in amplitude. And the harmonics that are emphasized are the resonances. So the bottom one has a resonance of around 1200 hertz and another resonance at 2100 hertz. B, musical instrument B, has a slight resonance here and then a dip and then a slight resonance here and then a dip and a slight resonance here, whatever. 3 different examples. That's all we're doing. In musical instruments, the reed or the lips determine the fundamental frequency. The mass and stiffness of the instrument, however, determine the amplitude of each harmonic. Read that again. In musical instruments, the reed or lips determine the fundamental frequency. The mass and stiffness of the instrument determines the amplitude of the harmonics. Recall, resonance, this is all recalling back to Unit 1 again. We do lots of loop-de-loos in this course. Resonance is influenced by impedance. Opposition due to mass, opposition due to stiffness, plus resistance. Basically, I'm going to show you this picture here. I'll stop sharing and I'll show you what I want you to write down on the margin beside this paper. Okay? Reactance plus resistance is impedance. Reactance plus resistance equals impedance. A little bit of physics for you. We don't get into calculating this. You're never going to do this. Neither am I. I just want you to memorize this. Reactance plus resistance is impedance. Everybody got that. Impedance is the flip side of resonance. A smile is an upside down frown. A frown is an upside down smile. Resonance is, impedance is what doesn't resonate. What this cup doesn't like, okay? What the object doesn't like passing through. So think of the impedance as the opposite of resonance. If it resonates with high frequencies, it impedes low frequencies. If it resonates with low frequencies, it impedes high frequencies. Got it? Good. All right. Share screen again, Teddy. Okay. Now, read now. Opposition due to mass. Opposition due to mass and stiffness of an object is sometimes called reactance. That's the top, what you just wrote on the bottom of your page there. Reactance determines the favorite vibrating frequencies that will most easily pass through it. Mass allows lows to get through. Stiffness allows highs to get through. And read it another way. Mass doesn't let highs get through. Stiffness doesn't let lows get through. Get it? Good. Reactance is thus very frequency dependent. Reactance is the opposition due to mass or the opposition due to stiffness, and that determines what sounds will resonate with an object. Resonance occurs when mass reactance equals stiffness reactance. Where have you seen that before? In your textbook, Lass and Woodford. When the resonant frequency, when the opposition due to mass, opposition due to stiffness is the same in any object, yea, e'en so verily, that shall be the resonant frequency. All right, I'm not making up. I'm no physicist. I'm just reading your text. Resistance. Now we're talking the middle part of that little equation that I gave you here. Okay, you're talking the middle part. Resistance. Resistance is also offered by any object that carries sound. Okay, like different sized wine glasses, tuning forks, anything that carries sound has reactance, opposition due to mass and stiffness, and resistance. Now, resistance, think of resistance like simple friction. And in any object, its resistance to sound is the same for all frequencies. In any object, think of resistance like simple friction, like sliding your foot across the floor, or taking a book and trying to slide it across the floor. Eventually, friction stops the book moving. Okay, well, that's the same thing in an object carrying sound. Every object carrying sound has resistance to the passage of sound. Otherwise, sound would go on forever. So, resistance in any object, unlike reactance, resistance in any object is the same for all frequencies. It is not frequency dependent. Reactance is opposition due to mass and opposition due to stiffness, and yeah, those are very, very frequency dependent. Good. Look what we've covered. Isn't that special? Top of page 2. Impedance / resonance act as filters. And these reinforce the basic buzz of your vocal tract. Vocal tract is from your larynx to your lips. Voice to your lips. They call that your vocal tract. Okay? Your vocal tract is 17 centimeters long. And your vocal tract is closed at one end, open at the other end. Closed at your larynx, L-A-R-Y-N-X. Never call it a voice box ever again. Okay? That's a silly word. It's larynx. From your Adam's apple or larynx to your lips in the adult is about 17 centimeters long. In inches, I guess you divide that by about 2.5 to get something like 6 inches, whatever. But nobody uses inches anymore except the USA and England. Anyway, filtering resonance of the properties of the 17 centimeter vocal tract. They reinforce speech and they give it its quality. And Kelly and I were describing earlier on in this talk, when we first joined, before I started recording, this is what makes two people sound different. Okay? Two guys, the larynx is going to be quite similar. What makes Ted sound different from Tom is the fact that Ted's head, his vocal tract, has different mass and stiffness than Tom's. Okay? That's what makes Ted's voice sound different from Tom's voice. You see what you're learning here? This is what speech-language pathologists learn. This is how they, speech and hearing. I'm giving you a dose of speech pathology here, okay? But that's what, so just like a clarinet sounds different from a horn, even though the reed, the vibrating thing is identical, okay, the mass and stiffness properties of the horn are going to determine its resonances. Well, the mass and stiffness of Ted's vocal tract are going to determine the particular resonances of Ted's voice. And that's what gives Ted's voice different quality from Tom's voice. And it's what gives Mary's voice different quality from Sue's voice. Okay, it's just little bits and pieces here. Everyone's speech without the vocal tract would sound very tinny and quite similar. Now, filters, okay? Filters are determined by the drop-off. Let's look at a set of filters here if we can. Here's 4 filters. And we need to learn these words to become good at acoustics, okay? We just talked about voices and how quality differs and how vocal tracts can act as filters. Well, what that means is they can resonate with certain frequencies and they don't resonate with other frequencies. All right, there's all different kinds of objects through which sound passes. Some of them are low pass. And look at the top. They let lows get through, but they don't let highs get through. They're called low pass. The bouncer is only letting certain people get through. Here's a high pass filter. High pass filter is like your big burly bouncer at the bar. He's letting the women get through, but he's not letting the guys in. Not quite yet. You got to pay. Okay? Women, go on in there. High pass. Band pass may be a combination of low pass and high pass. You're letting a certain band of frequencies get through. And a notch filter or a band reject is saying, hey, everybody can get through except these guys. Okay? It might be, to be a little political, might be like Trump saying everybody can get in except the Muslims. That's not very nice, but you know what I'm saying. Band rejects. Hospitals use band rejects filters because the chords in your instruments, okay, and hospital instruments run on 60 hertz. Electricity has a 60 hertz wave. And you want to make sure you knock out that 60 hertz wave, or nurses in hospitals are going to have a hard time reading some of the instruments in the hospitals. So hospital instrumentation commonly uses a band reject filter, which kicks out 60 hertz, the 60 hertz hum of electricity. Just giving examples here. So how things can act as resonators means what sounds they let through and what sounds they don't let through. They're like filters. Look at these filters. I think we saw some of these already. Here's 3 different filters. Have a peek at this slide. You got this filter's not letting this frequency get through. It's letting this frequency through. It's not letting this one through. It's letting this one through a little bit. It's not letting that one through. Look at the bottom one. This filter is letting lots of these frequencies where my cursor is, letting them get through, but it doesn't like 1,000 hertz or 1,800 hertz. It doesn't like it, saying you can't get through. Sorry, I don't like you. So resonances, impedance, okay, all that stuff, they act as filters. Which sounds are going to get through, which sounds are not going to get through. The ones that get through are the resonances. The ones that don't get through were impeded. How are they impeded? By reactance and resistance. So a smile is an upside-down frown. A frown is an upside-down smile. Impedance is the inverse of resonance. Resonance is the inverse of impedance. Cool. All right, we're good, good. All right, we covered filters. We covered the 4 different types of filters. Still with me here? Good stuff. Grab a coffee here. Gargle with it. All right. Believe it or not, this is recorded. So everyone who's going to be listening to this thing later on is going to think I've lost my mind. Yep, I did. I lost my mind way back. All right. Filters are defined by cutoff frequencies and octave roll-off. Well, what the Sam Hill does that mean? Filters are defined. What's the cutoff frequency? Right there. And what's the dB per octave roll-off? How steep was the filter? Look at the next one, high pass. Here's your cutoff frequency. Here's your octave roll-off. They can be steep, they can be shallow. So just think of filters. They have cutoff frequencies and dB per octave roll-off. Enough on that. Next section. Noise has non-periodic waveform with random amplitude distribution. We've covered that. But look at this one here, right where my grayed area here is on the page. Noise can be transient or it can be turbulent. The word transient means short. So noise can be like this. Clap, transient. Door slam, bang. Gunshot, boom. Transient. Or it can be turbulent. Ongoing. Like a fan. Air conditioner. Babble of speech background noise. Okay? Speech has a combination of transient and turbulent noises. Let's go to our let's go to our consonants again. What would be an example of a transient noise in speech? Well, maybe the letter P. Maybe the letter T. The letter K. Because you just say them and they're done. Okay? The horse is out of the barn. You've opened the door, horse is out. But what about the letter F? I can continue that one. I can continue that one. So pops and fizzes. Pops would be transient, fizzes turbulent. So transient noise, turbulent noise, all these 2 different types of noises. Sound can be pure, that's boring. Pure in frequency or instant in time, but not both, blah, 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 blah. Just cross those 3 lines out, they're boring. Okay, next. Waveform and spectrum for broadband noise. Well, we covered that now. Pink noise and white noise. So look at pink noise and white noise. We saw this picture already. So that's what that section of the thing is, okay? Pink noise and white noise. So basically that's it. And then you will read with me something called narrow band noise. Now, narrow band noise. I'm going to, since I haven't got a PowerPoint of it, I think I'll just draw it for you and show you. Okay? I'll show you a broadband noise, 2 examples of broadband noise. And then I'll show you narrowband noise. Okay, I'm just drawing this for you. This would be pink, and this would be white. And those are both broad band noises. And these are narrow band of noise. Okay, now stop sharing screen. Show you in the picture mo better here. Okay. See that? Broad band noise, BBN. And you can see the word white, flat across the frequencies. Pink, okay? Pink is actually, I drew pink wrong. Shoot. That's all wrong, Venema. Don't draw pink like that. Pink has more energy in the lows and it drops in the highs. Okay, this would be pink. There we go. Now you're getting your act together here. All right. Pink noise, more energy in the lows, less in the highs. White noise, flat, right? Both of those are broad band noises, BBN. The bottom one is showing you narrow bands of noise. Narrow, okay, just at some frequencies, just surrounding some frequencies. Maybe the one on the left surrounds 1,000 hertz. And the one on the right surrounds 2,000 hertz. Okay, that's all. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because you're going to learn this in audiometry. When you're testing hearing. When you're testing hearing, sometimes a person has really good hearing in one ear and really bad hearing in the other ear, right? So if you're testing the really bad ear and you've got a headphone on that bad ear, you're making the sound really loud so the bad ear can hear, my dear. But guess what? Sometimes that sound in the bad ear is crossing the skull and it's getting to the good ear. So the guy's going to raise his hand because your head is like a pail. It can only hold so much water. Okay? So if I put more than about 50 decibels into a bad ear, it'll start to cross over to the good ear. So we have to mask the good ear to keep it busy. Okay? And we use narrow bands of noise to mask the good ear. Now, you don't use masking if the ears are the same. But if one ear is really bad and one ear is really good, you have to mask the good ear while you're testing the bad ear. So when you're testing, you're putting 1,000 hertz into the bad ear, you're going to use a narrow band of masking noise surrounding 1,000 hertz in the good ear. When you're putting 2,000 hertz tone into the bad ear, into the good ear, you're going to take narrow band of noise surrounding 2,000 hertz, and you're going to put that in the good ear. You get it? Okay, so narrow bands of noise are used every day by the HIS in audiometry for what purpose? To keep the good ear busy so it can't participate in the test. All right, and when do we use broadband noise? Well, guess what? We don't use white noise, but we do use pink noise. And we use pink noise when we're putting speech into the bad ear. Now you want to mask the good ear while you're testing the bad ear for speech. Okay, now stop or share screen again, and we'll just talk turkey here. Look at the PowerPoint. What did we say was here's pink noise. And it's got more energy in the low frequencies, doesn't it? Just like the frequencies of speech. That's why, WHY, how come we use pink noise to mask the good ear, to keep it busy when you're testing the bad ear with words. Say the word tree, say the word cow, say the word moo, okay? When in audiometry, part of your testing is pure tone testing with pure tones, and a second part of audiometry is speech. When you're using speech reception threshold, you're using speech. single syllable words for speech discrimination testing. Okay, we're using speech. So what kind of masking will we use for speech? Well, speech is a broad band, complex sound. So we've got to use a broad band noise. And the broad band noise that has a similar spectrum to speech is going to be pink noise. There you go. So it all has meaning. It all has relevance to your field. Always, always, always. All of this stuff has use, or it finds its life in your field, actually and truly. So page 2, where were we now? Almost done my set of lies. It's almost time for us to quit here. In fact, it's probably where what we should do is end today's session here. What we'll do next week, we'll start reading on beats. Now, as a kid, I hated beats. Still can't stand. I know beets is spelled B-E-E-T-S. Can't stand them. I don't know how anybody can eat those things. There ought to be a law against eating beets. I used to tease at Conestoga College in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. That's an HIS program I started. I would always tease, and I would say, to the students, who likes beets? And a bunch of them would put up their hands, and I go, okay, the highest grade you're getting in this class is a B. Okay. Guess what? They would always give me for Christmas, they would give me a jar of beets just to piss me off. They would do it just to bug me. And I would be a good boy. I'd open it up and I'd say, okay, I'll try it again. I'll try. I took one out and I would eat it. And, but I'd do it. Anyway, beets, B-E-A-T-S. Read about that. Okay, that's a combination of two sounds that are slightly different in frequency. You take a 1,000 hertz tone and a 1,001 hertz tone. Put them together, you're going to get wow, 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 wow. Take a 1,000 hertz tone and a 1,005 hertz tone. You're going to get 5 beats per second. Take a 1,000 hertz tone and a 2,000 hertz tone. You'll hear 2 beats per second. Whoa, 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 whoa. So we'll cover beats. Hello, Tanisha Spears' mother. Great to see you in the picture. I love this. This is great. How are you? Nice to see you. So then, and then we're going to be covering different kinds of sounds, waveforms, and spectra for 3 kinds of sounds. Complex square waves, triangular waves, sawtooth waves, square waves. Little Jack Horner sat in the corner and got a square rear end. Anyway, then the next page, the 3rd page, we are going to cover speech. We're going to really look at the acoustics of speech. And then we're done. So, and then it will be, I guess, midterm time. Midterm time covers all of the what do you call it? Wavelength, frequency, speed of sound, decibel, and complex. So we're halfway through complex. I'd say a little more than halfway. I think we've done good today. Bit of slice. All right. Adios to all of you. Live long and prosper. And bye-bye. And read. Check out the email I sent Janisha, and we'll see you next week. Okay. Yeah. Adios.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.